morning, everyone. Welcome to another week. I hope your weekend was okay, either working here or being at home. So, a few things going on nationally that I'll talk about first of all, and then a few other bits going on around the trust. And then I'm delighted to say I've got Sue here with me today. So we're going to have a chat with her later about what's going on with the bereavement team, which obviously is a busy place, unfortunately, at the moment. So we're going to have a little chat about that. So what's happened nationally over the weekend? You'll have heard the news around the swabbing centres, and I talked a bit about that over the weekend, didn't I? And they're a bit overladen, but we're just carrying on with what we're doing at the moment as far as staff. So if you're unwell at work, please tell your manager and contact occupational health, and we'll arrange for you to get swabbed, hopefully before you go home. If you're unwell at home, then we'll arrange for you to come up and be swabbed as well. The government is starting from today swabbing all patients who are coming into the trust who are going to potentially stay overnight. Now, the details of this are not quite clear yet, so some comms will go out about it, and I will let you know more about that, or someone will let you know more about that. But we are going to start swabbing a lot more patients, even if they're not symptomatic. They're trying to sort of study the population more as to who potentially has the illness, because some people have the illness or have the virus and don't have the illness. They don't actually feel unwell, or it may come up as some other kind of symptom. So that will be starting as well this week. The Prime Minister gets back from his sick leave today. So I think there's been a lot of delay on discussions around lockdown. I mean, he has come back in this morning saying, no, we're sticking with the lockdown. I think we'll hear more about that today and tomorrow, probably, around what is that going to look like. There's loads of rumours about, we're having a bit of a laugh in the 9:30 meeting, because there's rumours about you kind of having to be in bubbles of 10 people. So basically you have your 10 lockdown people that you're allowed to see. And I think it's going to cause a lot of arguments, I think. But we don't know if that's going to happen yet. I think, and I hope, the Prime Minister will be very cautious with relaxing the lockdown. Those of you that have been out and about to work this weekend will know that the roads were much busier this weekend, and people are definitely not being as stringent. As far as the trust is concerned, we have had a reduction in admissions, but we are still very busy. So we still have 180 patients in this trust who are COVID positive or suspected of having COVID. And people are very busy. ITU's still busy. We still have patients on CPAP. So we really, really want to keep this curve from spiking again, as they say. So we do not want a massive increase in patients. So I'm hoping that any lockdown will be sort of gradually reduced and not suddenly. We're also seeing a lot of patients coming in now who've been at home unwell, as I said last week. So we're pretty busy in the trust. The number of deaths of our patients from COVID has gone down slightly, which is really encouraging. But I am being cautiously optimistic. I know the rest of the country is, almost celebrating that it's over. Well, it's not, guys, and we know that, don't we? Because we're still working really hard here. So let's keep that a very measured approach to that. There is a lot of research going on, and particularly we're involved in the recovery trial that Oxford University are leading, and that we actually have had the most patients in Kent in that trial. We've had 99 patients in that trial, and that's looking at 5 different treatments. Unfortunately, at the moment, there's nothing coming through that is definitely saying that any of those treatments is working for COVID-19, but they continue with the trial. There's about 3,700 people across the country in the trial. and that will continue, but it's not looking terribly optimistic at the moment, I'm afraid. And you'll also notice that the trials of the vaccine have started at Oxford University, so there are people who have volunteered for that. That does not mean that we have a vaccine, guys, I'm afraid, so don't get excited. It takes a long time for that to come through. Even if it's successful, there's a lot of processes it has to go through before we actually end up with a vaccine. So we're going to look at our new normal, aren't we? And we're looking at that at the moment. We're looking at how will things be different, how will things be better, and how will we run things differently in hospitals in the future? Because certainly for the next while, coronavirus is going to be with us. And we've learnt a lot, haven't we, from that? So one of the very worrying features of coronavirus is that there does seem to be a link with people from a BAME background. And there has been another study commissioned to look into this further. I think I talked about this last week. It's very worrying. We're seeing larger numbers in BAME community in some areas. There is nothing conclusive at the moment, but obviously we want to make sure that we're doing everything possible there. So that study has commenced as well. So that's the kind of national stuff that's been going on. I just want to say Friday we said goodbye to a very loved member of staff, to Deb McCallion, and you'll all know Deb's. And Deb's came to the Trust about 10 years ago as the head of midwifery and really turned things around in midwifery. Did some fantastic stuff. And in fact, just before I came to the Trust, I got a phone call saying, "Oh, Louise, you'll never guess what, Deb McCallion is thinking of leaving." And I obviously didn't know Deb's at the time, but now I know why everyone was in such a panic about it. And we had a long chat, actually. I think it was one of the first people I spoke to was Deb's, and she wanted to move out of midwifery. At that point, she'd been head of midwifery for, a good amount of time, and she wanted to do something a bit different. So as you know, she's been doing some fantastic work with CQC, with the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian role, and with our lovely Dartford doers. Now, as most of you will know, East Kent Hospital is having a really difficult time with its maternity services, and they're just about to start a big national review of their services. And they have had a lot of problems. So Deb's has got 1 year left before she retires, and she's decided that she wants to take up the offer of going over there and helping them for that year to turn around their maternity services. And much as we all love Deb's, I kind of feel their need is probably greater than ours at the moment. So we're all very sad to see her go, but I know she'll do brilliant stuff. She has said that she'll be back in a year, either volunteering or doing other stuff in the Trust. So I'm delighted to hear that. And Di Gambrell, who I think just as many of you know Di as well, is taking over Deb's role at the moment. So she's going to be working with the doers, supporting them, and also working on some of the other compliance stuff. So we're delighted to welcome Di into that role. And I heard there was free ice cream. I missed it actually completely, but I think there might be some today as well. I think there was an ice cream van at the Trust giving some free ice cream. Let's make sure we do that in an orderly way, please. Let's not have Cabbage Gate again. We don't want Ice Cream Gate where everybody mobs the ice cream van. So it's not such a sunny day today, but well, you can always eat ice cream, can't you, in my world? So that's exciting stuff too. Right, I am now going to move over to my guest for today. I'm very excited about this interview. And I'm going to hand you over to Sue. And Sue, first of all, tell us a bit about your career, what you've done in the Trust, and what you're doing now. Well, what you're doing in kind of peacetime.
Thank you. So I'm a cardiology nurse, and I qualified I'm embarrassed to say, but 1989. And back in Bath in the West Country, and probably up until about the end of the 90s, it was almost exclusive cardiology. So every bit of it, cardiac rehab, cardiac surgery, cardiology in many different London hospitals. And then when I came here to the Trust, I started about the same time that Deb's did. She and I were here about the same time. So about 10 years. And this is the longest I've worked anywhere. I haven't actually lasted longer than about 2 years in any other role.
We wouldn't let you go. That's
so
why.
I think, and the warmth and the kindness and the friendliness of everybody when I first came here was something I had never come across elsewhere. It's something that I know everyone talks about, but it was really, really real for me. I'd come back from overseas to here, and it just really felt like home, and really felt like home very quickly. So I was the proudest matron in the Trust to be a matron for cardiology. So that was Chestnut Ward and the cardiac nurses and the heart centre. And then I was asked to work with Kate King, who was the acting director of nursing at the time. And I think back in 2013, I don't think we'll all forget the 1st of October 2013 when we opened Queen Mary's and Elm Court on the same day. And so I was asked to help with her for 3 months. I think is how it was put at the time. And I think it was probably about nearly 2 years later, by the time that Vicky had come in as our substantive director of nursing at that time, that I then moved on to work closely with Queen Mary's. So I acted as their governance link and lead, and had 2 days a week over there, and it was sheer joy. And it's always been a pleasure to be really associated with Queen Mary's, and right from the beginning with them. And then this governance role was created, I think, and I'm forgetting my time here, but I think about 2015. So this was a new role in governance, and the idea was to have a clinician. So I always said I was the clinical governance when I started in this role. And the roles got split so that Michael Brand and I are both the senior governance managers, and he mostly has the regulatory side of governance, and I had the patient-facing side of governance, so complaints and PALS, and the bereavement team, and some patient experience work in that way. So that's what I've been doing since about 2015, and currently now, as you say, not in peacetime, but in
So how
wartime.
have things changed now? How's your role changed over the last few
almost
weeks?
exclusively the bereavement officer, or part of the bereavement team now, just managing that side of things for the Trust, as we have had half as many deaths in April as we would normally expect, and coming in pretty big volumes.
So tell us the difference then between how that kind of bereavement pathway works. I want to talk a little bit about PALS as well, actually, because I know that's changed, hasn't it? So over the last few weeks, it's been terribly busy. So tell us a bit first about bereavement. How's the bereavement office changed in the way it's worked over the last few weeks?
The biggest difference is we would normally see the bereaved families. They would come to us and collect the certificate, and then they would take it off and they would register at one of the local libraries. And the first change was the registrars now are asking us to send the certificates to them electronically. And they are making a telephone call to the relatives, and they are doing the registration over the phone.
Okay.
So that is completely new, and new for everyone. And I think one of the few positives that we as a bereavement team would see coming out of this is that I think that is, the relatives are saying that is better, and it is quicker in that respect.
Do you think they'll carry that on afterwards?
We are hoping that they will.
So they actually register the death
over the
phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So rather than having to go, and I think there's a rule that you have to register a death within 5 days. It's not 5 working days; it's 5 actual days. And if somebody sadly passes away at 23:59 on a Friday evening, then the rule should be that you have to register the death by Tuesday, which is almost impractical for everybody to have to do that. The registrars came to see us before Christmas to see was there anything we could do to quicken things up, because Kent was not performing terribly well in the 5-day target. I imagine that's gone up for them, and I'm hopeful that that is the hook that they might hang this on in order to keep that going, because it is much, much easier. The slight aside to that is we would normally talk people through the certificate and say, is this what you're expecting? And just be able to have a chat with them and answer any questions at the time. That's being done by phone now, and I just feel the whole thing for the families is very remote. They wave goodbye to their loved one via an ambulance, and up until recently weren't able to come in and spend any time with them or see them. And then we're doing things by phone, and the registrars are doing things by phone. And that's great if you're in isolation, because that means you can actually do that, and that's much easier for people. But there is perhaps a little bit of the human interaction that, so I'm not quite sure how that will work
and we
going
had
forward.
a discussion with the family care team, I think they're called, are they? So we're trying to work with families around people coming in if they can, but I know a lot of the families can't come in because they're isolating or unwell, and so we're using emails and iPads and all sorts of stuff. But as you say, for many people, that's just not what they don't feel comfortable with that, do they?
And the other problem that we're noticing for people, and I'd like to thank everybody who is helping in this, because it is not easy, is trying to reunite people with property. Is turning out to be a little bit of a logistical nightmare, and that is for everyone in every sense, because of course the families would be present with their loved one when they passed normally, and they would take the property at that time, and what they didn't take would come to our office, and we would reunite them with it when they came to collect the certificate. So it's turning out to be quite a...
So how does it work now then?
So huge thanks to Dorinda Harrington, who's the Parkinson's nurse who offered some time, and to Angela, who's the dementia nurse, and they are heading up a team with Tess England from Theatre Scheduling, where our lovely helpers are going to the wards to get some stuff, and they are collating all of that and contacting the relatives to come and collect it. From today, moving forward, and as you said before, the numbers are beginning to ease. And so I have a quiet caution with you as well on that actually we feel that the wards are able to deal with this going forward directly with the relatives, so that nothing comes off of the wards, and they can contact the relatives to collect their property in that way. And those that, of course, can't come and spend time with their loved one at the time. Which
it's hard, isn't it?
Huge thank you to everyone who is trying to help to do that.
And also the complaints process has been halted, hasn't it, by the NHS during the pandemic, which was a bit of a surprise, I think, to all of us, to be honest. So most of our patients, if they have worries and concerns, are going through PALS, aren't they now?
So and again, the PALS team and the complaints team, led by Kerry, are doing a magnificent job in fielding all of the calls that are coming through. Because again, a lot of people would just pitch up to the PALS team and sit down and talk with them in that respect. So they are doing everything by phone, but fielding all of the calls and doing a tremendous job in being able to resolve a lot of people's queries or fielding them around the place in that respect. And they're working tirelessly. I know they're doing a great job.
Oh, well done to them. And do you think anything good will come out of any of this, out of the whole coronavirus pandemic?
With having said I qualified in 89, I remember a different NHS then. And I remember an NHS then where there was more trust and more togetherness with our patients and our families. And I explained this to one of the junior doctors recently about the warmth and the love that's being given to us at the minute. And I said, this is how it used to be. We didn't quite have deliveries at the door every day in the volume that we're having at the moment. But
I don't remember the free ice creams, I must say.
But that aside, I think we had such a working together with everyone. And just before this, I think people, and certainly with the complaints that would come through and some of the PALS issues, it did feel at times that people, no matter what they did, didn't feel like they were doing enough. And that trust had gone, and that was a national thing, that wasn't a Dartford thing, that was, and my hope will be that where we find a place going forward is that trust and working together with people and respect for people on the ground is really welcome. The junior doctor that I spoke to,
actually,
he couldn't believe it. He said, really, this is how it used to be? And I said, yeah, this is how it used to be. There used to be a warmth of, you know, let's work with this together.
And interestingly, just before the coronavirus pandemic, we'd had over the last year a massive rise in violence towards staff and some terrible behaviours from you know, from patients and relatives. And I hadn't thought about that actually. This sort of hero worship now almost of the NHS that maybe we'll be left with a bit more respect.
And I understand, you know, trust had been lost in many ways for many reasons across the country, but I hope the middle ground that we find going forward will be a happy one for everyone.
It's really, really good thought. And has this affected you much, the coronavirus, personally?
My family are all well. I'm very pleased to say. I have a sister overseas who is also in lockdown, but they are all very well, and long may that last. It's hard for us all. We're all a bit far-flung around the place. So we did manage one WhatsApp video, which was hilarious for everybody. First of all, I did not look like I should do if they were to see me. So there was a big run around the house to put some makeup on. And we all were trying to learn how to, you know, to who's here, who's not here. That was hilarious. So that was fun to do that in that way.
I think we're all doing that. These Zoom meetings and calls. You look, don't you, and think, well, I don't look like that, do I? Really?
Who's that? I think the thing that's overwhelmed me the most, I live in a little hamlet in near East Malling, and there's only 4 houses. And so my next door neighbours, they started, I think it was 3 weeks ago, and there was a knock on the window at 8 o'clock on Thursday. And I had a personal clap from my neighbours next door, and I can't quite get over it. And each week they've been doing it, but as lovely Jeff has been tending my garden, then I clap back so in that way. But I couldn't quite get over that, and I'm sure that's the same for everyone in the trust.
It's nice, isn't it?
It's overwhelming. It really, really
I know,
is.
we had some neighbours yesterday come and, you know, from a distance obviously, and said, oh, would you like us to mow your lawn? I was like, yeah, okay, you know. Usually I'm kind of like, oh no, don't worry. But I thought, well, that's one little thing I'm not going to turn down. So it's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. Really lovely.
Oh, so it's been really nice talking to you, and thank you so much. I mean, you give so much to this organisation. You don't really shine your light, do you, in this interview, in all the other stuff you do. So I know that you give a lot of support to staff, corridor conversations and cups of tea, and you are one of the Trust's kind of really wise sages in this organisation that people turn to, and that's invaluable at this time. And I can't thank you enough for all the hard work that you and your teams are doing. So massive thank you.
And in that light, I'm embarrassed to say I haven't thanked the lovely bereavement team for all the hard work that they are doing. And we've got 2 lovely people with us from Sterile Services who are helping us at the moment, and Kate over from Queen Mary's, and without them we would not survive. And marvellous Karen, who I'm afraid we stole from your team.
You did indeed. We will, less said about that the better. No, I'm only joking.
Thank you for your kindness.
Very nice.
Thank you for your kindness.
Good. Okay, that's it for today, folks, and I will speak to you again tomorrow. Look forward to it. Take care now. Bye.